Thank you so much, Learning, for sponsoring today's video.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Claire. I'm listening to the sequel to a fantasy series called The Naming. Well, the first book's called The Naming. The book I'm reading now is called The Riddle. This is a series I know I'm going to want to talk to you guys about because it's so good, kind of unknown as far as I can tell. Like, no one talks about it, no one's mentioned it, I've never seen it on a list, and it's so good. But that's something I want to go in depth over, I think, once I'm done with the series itself. But I want to try this guy. Seems not frothy, but it seems like something I could easily digest while I'm like getting back into the habit of reading. ATALANTA, I will keep wanting to say Atlanta. ATALANTA by Jennifer Saint, which is just one of the best author names. And it seems to be a retelling of a Greek myth. I'm not really sure which one. I actually don't know Greek mythology that well beyond the very, very, very basics, like the most well-known stuff. So I just read the prologue, which was a few pages. As far as the prologue goes, really well written, really cute, and definitely has that folklore style storyteller quality. The frustrating thing about prologues sometimes is that they're not written in the style the way the rest of the book is written. Distinctly remember having this issue with The Cruel Prince, that like fairy YA book that was super popular a few years ago. I really liked the prologue. The rest of the book was written in first person and very modern and quippy and snarky. These prose were definitely lyrical, but not in a purple sort of way, more in a folklore sort of way. So anyway, I'm gonna read this over the next week. Hey guys, so I wanted to take a moment to talk about today's sponsor. As I've mentioned or am going to mention in this vlog, my caricature business has really taken off. That's what I'm off to right now, to a Halloween macabre gala. And one of the minor setbacks to being really busy with work is that I had a harder time keeping up with the daily classes and videos, and especially the lives. However, Learning, who is today's sponsor, you have access to these classes for weeks after the course ends, including the lives. So it gives me plenty of time and so much freedom and space to actually go at my own pace and catch up when it works with my schedule. So if you're someone like me where you're just insanely busy and you can't necessarily pop in on a live at 2 p.m. on a Monday, the Learning How to Write a Novel course is so flexible with your time and with your schedule. I wasn't necessarily expecting for things to take off the way that they did, and I'm immensely grateful for it, as I am for Learning. When I have a moment to breathe, I can go and listen to that week's video, read the materials, but truly at my own pace. I have a code listed below to get you 10% off, and 10% off in this case is a little more than $100. So, and if you are interested in joining, I would also much appreciate it if you used my affiliate code if you're gonna join. Thank you so much, Reedsy, and back to the video. This is my Shaktari spike mat. Shout outs to the spike mat. So it's literally, well, covered in fur, but also covered in all these little spikes. And yes, they are extremely sharp. And you lay on it, and it's supposed to kind of be like, not quite acupuncture because it doesn't puncture your skin, but a muscle relaxer. Right, Yukon? He's very annoyed this is in the way. Okay, come on. There we go, good boy. Do you feel better? Yes, good boy. All right, I'm on page 33, so I'm a few chapters in. We're starting to get going. It's perfectly fine right now. I'm not riveted yet. I'm avoiding this book cover jacket. I'm not even entirely sure like what the conflict is going to be. I almost see it in my horizon. If this is a Greek character in mythology, I don't know who it is. I know nothing about her. Artemis is a big character right now who I also barely know anything about. She's revealed herself to maybe not be as chill as this main character thinks she is. So that'll be interesting if there's like a play with reader expectations. It's an easy breezy read and it's really short, so I'd love to make good progress with this. But she does have, while there's a simplicity to the writing, she does use very crisp, satisfying language, especially around the natural world. So you definitely get a sense of like the woods and the glades and the rivers and the animals, and all that feels like a character in and of itself that's talked about, honestly, with more description than anything else. I don't even really know what the main character looks like. That's all I gotta say for those guys though. So, but that's my check-in today.
Speculative fiction, because it is that opportunity for us to go past the mundane. When you think about it, we just live our everyday lives, but we kind of use magic as a way to get past what we live every day, and we can imagine fairies, or we can imagine werewolves or vampires, we can watch Marvel movies, we can see Superman flying through the air, we can go beyond what we live every day and see something more. So obviously, like I said earlier, I could have written about Amy's life and her children, but for me, tapping into something speculative gives me an opportunity to frame the story in a different way past what we would normally see every day.
Yukon, that's you. That's you.
You know, when you write, let's say you work out every day. If you work out every day, you will like shed weight or gain muscle. Like X equals Y. It will happen. When you sit down in front of the computer every day, that is not what happens.
Good. This was good. This was excellent. I love seeing all the people that were here. And I can't wait to read it.
I can't believe I walked in, I was like, it's gonna be like me.
I know you said that.
I just feel like it's a lot of work for you to do all kinds of computers and stuff. And I could just work from your house. The only thing is I'd need it.
Mom, turn around. You're gorgeous.
Good evening, Des Moines, and welcome to Avatar: The Last Airbender Live in Concert!
The goat like sniffed him and then headbutted him. And I was like, oh no. And then like, I got a video of it. Yes. This is why I love this place. This is cool. And this
Yukon. Handsome.
look. No, don't move. Damn it. Come here.
Hey guys, apologies for not updating more often. Part of the issue is a fellow caricature artist friend and I have started a caricature company together, and it's really taken off these last few weeks. So we have just been busy with that. But I swear I am still trying to read Atlantia. This has been such an interesting book. One, it's written in a very interesting way. It's first person and yet somehow doesn't feel close. Type of writing is very simple, and we're going through things like the plot very quickly, and everything kind of feels like at an arm's distance. It keeps me from feeling super close to anybody, including Atalanta. I'm saying it so wrong. Never feel like I'm in the story. I don't even really feel like I'm in this character's head, despite it being in first person, but it is an extraordinarily fast read. We are covering a lot of ground in a very short amount of time. I'll read through a chapter and we'll go through like 2 or 3 events that any other book would spend 2 to 5 chapters on, or even like half a book on, but we're just like zooming by everything. So we're getting near the end, and here's what I'll say, because I don't necessarily want to spoil anything, but I have to mention what I find to be the most interesting part of this book. So the way it starts out is this girl is abandoned as a baby by her father. They make it very clear that her father, the king of wherever, abandoned her in the forest, and she was raised by the goddess Artemis, living amongst the nymphs, and her only interaction with other males, gods or creatures or otherwise, have been very negative. There was a nymph that was essayed by Zeus, or she was attacked and nearly essayed by centaurs. And yet Artemis sends her to go on this adventure with some of Greece's most formidable heroes to go get the golden fleece and the Argonauts, which from my understanding, that's like actual Greek lore. I know nothing about. This is the most I've ever read or know anything about the Argonauts. I just know that they like exist, which I'm definitely going to do a deep dive on once I'm done with this book. But anyway, and Artemis is like, oh, the one promise you have to make to me is that you will not get married. You must not lay with another man, and you must not get married. And so I was like, okay, there's all these negative connotations that Atalanta has about men. And now she's about to join a crew of like 30 men and spend like months out on sea with them. And I'm sure this is going to be her learning to trust other dudes and all of that. And she does grow incredibly close to one who becomes like one of her best friends and who she ends up sleeping with on the regular. But this dude, A, is married and has a wife. And in an interesting way, but also an odd way, just not really touched upon. She's just like, it's kind of a relief he has a wife, so I know that he can't settle down with me. But there's no mention of her having guilt or him having guilt. There was this point, and this really made me stop, reread the section, because I was so surprised when we came upon it. During their adventures with the Argonauts, she comes across different female figures, and these female figures are very powerful and capable and interesting, but also seem to be very marriage obsessed. And she has a conversation with one of these female figures and basically relays how Atalanta does, how disappointed she is that this figure wants to make her life smaller by getting married, and that she feels like really bad for her. And the reason it's taking me by surprise is because I feel like other books, when they have this sort of setup, have this very obvious payoff, which is that she shows up the men, they're all impressed by her and want to be her friend. She learns to care about them, falls in love with one of them, realizes love, comes above all else. But this seems to stand its ground on, even though she has affection for one and will sleep with one, she absolutely does not want marriage, and she thinks it's bad, not just for her, but other women that she sees going along with it. So I'll let you guys know if that changes or like what the deal is with that. I should be finishing it very, very soon. Hey, so I'm in the middle of reading. I don't have that much left, but I have to read you guys this section, and this is what I'm talking about, where this is just taking a turn I'm not expecting. This is going to be spoilers. So her lover that she's been sleeping with has been her closest friend and companion throughout this entire book. He has to go back home, and he was like, I'll run away with you and be with you. I'll leave my wife and family for you. And she was like, nope, not interested. She goes back home with him because she needed to complete like a task for his family. Irrelevant. Point is, he ends up dying. Kind of a tragic death, and his wife is, sobbing over his body, and then Atalanta runs away. So she's out in the woods, being sad, not sure what to do. She's not with the with the Argonauts anymore. She's not with this guy anymore. But this is what she says about this guy. Keep in mind, even as a reader who's reading first person, this is her closest companion this entire book. This is who she's the most herself with. This is who she talks the most to, who she thinks about more, who she has the highest regard for. And she says, as painful as it was to think of the manner of his death, I had already said goodbye to him. I had sent him back to his wife, and it hadn't broken my heart to do it. I wish that he was still alive, but I never wished he was with me. Brutal. Because again, she's been like regularly sleeping with this person. Weird. We don't have that much book left. Oh my God. She's pregnant. This has taken such an insane turn. Such an insane turn. I'm like kind of overwhelmed right now. So she's pregnant, angry about it because she says her fellow companions, the Argonauts, probably have fathered many children that they can just move on from. And she's upset that she's burdened with actually carrying and birthing the child. Finds like an elderly couple in a hut, convinces them to let her stay there, and she gives birth. And she's still kind of caring for the child, but mostly excited to get away from it, especially as the kid grows older, and she's just looking forward to leaving him behind. This is very interesting, especially the anger she has at her body and the fact that she has to be pregnant, that she has to give birth. This book is definitely playing around with gender dynamics in an interesting way, in the sense that it seems to like confronting, earlier it was marriage and now it's childbirth. The main character does not really care for any of this. She does not seem to be a very active parent. She certainly doesn't want to get married. Not that sad that the dude she was with is dead. It's been several days since I finished ATALANTA, and during that time I messed with my hair. We got a little bit of a darker, spookier thing going on. But more importantly, I have been doing research on this character, on this figure, because as I've mentioned throughout this vlog, I wasn't even sure this was a real Greek mythology figure, if she was actually ever involved with the Argonauts. And the reason I thought this, well, I don't know that much about Greek mythology, so I genuinely just had no idea. But I know with most YA fairy tale retellings, they as in authors, they'll straight up create characters from scratch. I mean, I think the most famous being A Court of Thorns and Roses with Farah being kind of like the self-made, self-insert into the story, or they just take a lot of liberties. However, as it turns out, what was so shocking, this is insanely faithful. I don't even really want to get into the ending, which I thought was nuts. I thought the ending was absolutely crazy. Turns out entirely what happens to her. Now, Atalanta is a kind of like a folklore figure that's tied to Artemis, and because she's folklore, like different regions have different stories of her. So this book actually does a fantastic job of taking all of these different stories that are kind of associated with her and creating a like chronological story of her life, and these different well, maybe she did this and maybe she did that, and combining them together. So actually now my appreciation for this book has gone up tremendously, because I'm like, holy cow, you actually did an incredible job getting this figure's different stories and how she's linked to these different events, like this very famous boar hunt and everything. I just couldn't believe it. The Wikipedia page is just a non-narrative of the book. But I had no idea going into it. And the book does a great job of fleshing out kind of these in-between events, but making it very plausible and completely on brand. I'm very happily surprised. So if you are a Greek mythology buff, you'll love this. This book is awesome then. There is something about the voice that does feel very distant. I've mentioned this in previous clips. That's probably my main critique. Despite being in first person, I'm being told about the events. I don't feel like I'm in the event, but it's fascinating all the same. And now I'm reminiscing on everything that happened in the book, because I'm like, well, that's just what happened. Now I'm reminiscing with, so this gives me a lot of faith about Jennifer Saint and any of her other retellings of any of these other mythological characters. She did a great job, and it was a genuinely really fun read. Oh, I might as well mention it, because why not? I finished the second book in the Naming series called The Riddle. This was an audiobook, by the way. I loved The Riddle. I liked it so much more than The Naming. Even though The Naming was still really good, but it follows so many classical tropes in an extremely well done way. This is a sort of series where it's a hero's journey, chosen one, magical school, outsider discovering this like magical world. Gorgeously written. It's an awesome read, and the second book just took me for a freaking whirlwind. I didn't know where we were going at any given point, and I just found it to be such a mostly pleasant read with like moments of complete and utter despair and agony. And like I'll start the third one. I'm gonna listen to a spooky book for October. I think I'm gonna do Between Two Flames, which is a very popular kind of spooky book. But I'll get around to listening to the third one called The Crow. So that concludes my reading vlog for this week. Let me know if you have read any of these books, if you have any book recommendations. Like I said, I already am getting started for my October reading and what I'm going to be doing there. Stay tuned for that. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.